Right. Good evening, everyone, and I'll start our June meeting of the Resources Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor John Izard. I'm the chairman of the committee. So welcome to all of us attending this evening. The usual preambles, if I can quickly run through. There's no fire alarm schedule for this evening, so if the fire alarm goes off, we need to exit the building. The meeting is being webcast, so that everyone can hear, particularly those listening at home. Could you make sure you have your microphones close enough to you, and could you make sure your mobile phones are switched to silent? Right. So if we look at our agenda, first item on the agenda is apologies for absence and substitutions. We don't have any apologies for absence or substitutions, but we're not complete this evening. So we've got, I think, 3 councillors who have not yet arrived. Maybe they will do. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. So I'd like to welcome the 5 new members to the committee. That's Councillor Ashford and Councillor Banerjee. They're not here tonight, and neither is Councillor McCormack. I'm sure they'll get the hang of it in due course. But gosh, I'd like to welcome Councillor Christina Jordan and Councillor Slimming. And I think for those of us who've participated in this committee last year, it's we work collegiately together and constructively, and aim to do our important job of holding the administration to account and officers to account, but doing it in a nice, polite way. And I'm glad, again, we've got one of our regular attendees here tonight, the leader of the council, Councillor Harvey, who's going to speak to both of the main items. I've also had a request tonight from one of the councillors here tonight that if we could get this done by 8:45, that would be appreciated, because there's some football match on, which a quite important football match. I'm sure that won't influence us in the slightest. The next thing it would be good if we could do is appoint a vice chair. So are there any nominations for vice chair? Julian, you did it last year. Are you going to put your name forward?
I'll nominate.
Julian, are you saying yes?
Yeah, I'm happy to be nominated.
Yes, yeah, right. Any other nominations? No. So is that seconded, Jonathan? Yep. Fine. Thanks, Mark. Okay, I think you've got the job then. Well done. Good. Right. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. And there has been a follow-up email from from Ellie as our officer assistant, which I think covers most of the points that we raised last time. We have the flag protocol attached, but I don't think we've had any response on the prioritisation of wards that you asked Councillor Carr in relation to street cleansing. Is that right? It is. So yes, good you come back on that. Right. We've had a response from the head of contracted services on waste stream data. We've had a response from the head of planning and infrastructure on the data differences between applications determined within 8 weeks. This is non-major applications determined within 8 weeks and those with an agreed extension. And it's been revealed that in quarter 3 of 25-26, 37% of non-major applications were determined in accordance with the extensions of time. I don't think we've had any answer in relation to one of the KPIs, 3.31. We requested a new KPI on enforcement turnaround times. Is that your moment now, Katie? Yes, not a good say.
So that was adopted and will be there from Q1 onwards for 26-27.
Just shows what influence we have, folks, doesn't it? Yeah, that's good. Very good. So good. And then we got a response on the refurbishment of West Side Community Centre, which is here. And I think the upshot was that it was felt that overall a refurbishment would be a better option. So I don't know, Paul, is there anything you want to say on that?
The only thing I would add is that the building itself is not solely ours, so a refurbishment option of that which exists is not always straightforward, bearing in mind Hampshire County Council have a very large say in it. It's also worth pointing out that was where the rack was first found in the context of their side of the building. That had a significant effect on ours. So yeah, I respect what's been said, and it will be taken in the round, obviously, when we do come forward with proposals eventually as partners. It's not just us, it'll be others involved as well.
So can I ask that the minutes are agreed and that as an accurate record, and so that we can sign them? Okay, good. Right, now, so we have two principal agenda items. The first one being the quarter 4 key performance indicator review. So for those who are new to the committee, this is a report that's produced quarterly, covering many of the, a considerable number of the measures that the council has to meet in order to demonstrate that it's performing in accordance with our objectives, in particularly the council plan, and the various measures. I think there are 79 measures in this report. They are measured against a RAG indicator, i.e. red, amber or green. What we have tonight is of the 79, 35 measures have been exceeded, 29 are on track, 5 are not met, so are amber, and 3 are red, and so they're not met by a significant margin, and 7, the data is not available. What we've done in the past on this committee is to focus in on the amber and the reds, but that if any councillor has got any questions on any of the other KPIs, then of course we should hear from them. But I would suggest that we start, if we're all agreed, if we start with the ambers and reds and have the lead officers address them and answer any questions, I think that would be an efficient way of proceeding. I think based on, there's been a request that one officer comes first, and that's Jess, and that's in relation to the major projects that she's responsible for, which is Many Downs South and what's called Many Downs Parcel 6A. So Jess, if you could come forward, please, and welcome this evening, and just explain what the situation is in relation to Many Down South and Parcel 6A, and why page 93. Thank you very much. And why you're in the amber.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Councillor Isaac. So in relation to the Many Down South dashboard, in this period we are reporting as amber. So the project is operating within budget and scope. The reason for the amber rating is due to the notification from the local planning authority to land promoters that there were representations received from the Environment Agency and South East Water which required resolution. So this matter potentially affects our promotion of Many Down South, and therefore we've now commenced our own review, noting the potential risk of these representations, which reflects the amber change. So just points to note really from our dashboard that the project submitted its Regulation 18 representation for the promotion of the land at Many Down South for inclusion in the local in the draft local plan, and simultaneously the adjacent landowner, the Society of Merchant Venturers, also submitted its representation, and within both submissions we had an agreed position for the promotion of the two sites. The team is now reviewing that planning position in relation to the latest updates from the LPA. Transport modelling has continued as a key area of focus, focusing on the full build out of both the councils and the Society of Merchant Venturers lands. Our Regulation 18 response focused on a northern access to enable delivery within the local plan period. We continue to engage with utility companies in the planning of the infrastructure to service the site, and we're waiting to see the outcome from the LPA engagement with South East Water. We continue to be successful in securing government funding for the Many Down Garden Town, which supports the technical work that we're undertaking for the promotion of the Many Down South land. And in terms of delivery work, we've continued with our consultants team to consider how Many Down South might be delivered in the future, including commercial approaches and lessons that we have learnt from Many Down North. And we propose that a briefing paper will be prepared for the consideration of the senior leadership and the cabinet in the next couple of months in relation to those options. Thank you.
Right, I realise I've got out of sequence here, so I should have invited the portfolio holder, Councillor Harvey, to introduce the report, then followed with some background information from Katie Sowers. So I'm embarrassed. So that's poor chairing from me. So can I suggest that we revert to the running order after we've asked any questions of Jess, and so that enables you to go. I'm completely influenced by your wish to get to get away early, Jess. It's your fault. Okay. So any questions for Jess on Many Down South? Yeah. Councillor James.
Great. Sorry, could we just clarify who's providing the water and who is providing the sewage? Thank you.
Apologies. We're still in very early stages in regards to liaison with the infrastructure providers. Bear with me one moment. So really at this stage we're just engaging with a variety of providers to try and understand the network capacity constraints and any reinforcement requirements. So we can't say specifically at this point who we would be looking to provide that at this stage, because it's still very early days.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask, you mentioned specific responses to the Regulation 18 in relation to Many Down South from the Environment Agency and South East Water. I'm familiar in the broad brush of what South East Water considers about the local plan in general, or for the borough, but could you elaborate on what they have said about Many Down South in particular, and then also what the Environment Agency have said in particular, because I think that may be new to me.
I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to answer that one. I'm afraid I don't know if that's one possibly that the local planning authority could elaborate on, but or I can come back to you with a written response on that one and clarify if there have been any specific points that have been raised from the provider specifically, or alternatively the local planning authority may be able to update on that one.
I'm happy to pick that one up. In terms of the actual 3 letters that we have on the Regulation 18 consultation, the one from South East Water specifically references the fact that they cannot, on the basis of the water cycle study that was undertaken as part of the Reg 18, commit to the uplift in housing on the sites that were identified for the uplift in housing, in comparing the 2 local plans, one in July 24 and the second local plan that we put forward for Reg 18. So that's South East Water's position on the uplift, nor can they confirm the capacity there exists. So they're looking at the moment to identify what capacity actually exists, and that is a really serious question. In terms of the Environment Agency and in terms of Natural England, they both agreed. They wrote supporting the position of their concern that South East Water did not have the water to meet the water supply requirements set out in the Reg 18. So the Environment Agency very much supported the position, and so did Natural England. So that was the first time, actually, we've seen them step forward and say such. What has happened since is the Environment Agency have now revoked the licence for South East Water to abstract from the Greywell Aquifer, which is hugely significant. And in order for the South East Water to continue abstracting, they have now taken it to the Planning Inspectorate to appeal. So the water will continue to be abstracted while the appeal is heard. But as far as the Environment Agency is concerned, and the language they used, which is very highly significant, is that the Greywell Aquifer has reached the point of ecological collapse. So that will have to be examined. It will have to be understood in far more detail in an inspectorate environment going to appeal. And South East Water are going to have to answer for why they have got us into this position. And one of the reasons is the pipeline that was supposed to be delivered from Surrey Hills 10 years ago has not been delivered. They have not done it. And they actually had a process whereby Ofwat refused to fund it. And that is quite serious. They say they can't deliver that for at least the next 10 years. So there are significant infrastructure issues that have now come to light as a result of the questions we've asked through the water cycle study, as a result of the letters received as part of the Reg 18 consultation, that the LPA are having to very carefully work through, but go broader than just the local plan, because they go to the heart of why South East Water, as a local water company, have not made provision for water supply in the way they should have done in Basingstoke and Deane. And we are very much challenging them on why in the world have you got us into this position. It's very serious.
Thank you. Julian?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we had problems with Hounsome Fields at one stage, in that part of it is in the Thames Environment Agency, whereas the remainder is actually in the southern, I can't remember the correct name, but the South Coast Environment Agency. Are we satisfied that we've asked all the right people the correct questions on these issues?
Councillor Harvey.
So one of the most interesting facts about the water companies locally is that their geography makes absolutely no sense. So as you will know in your ward, significant, as it were, areas are covered by Southern Water and Thames Water for sewage, and then covered by Southern Water and South East Water for supply. And the geography makes no sense. So for example, were South East Water to run that pipe from Surrey Hills to Basingstoke, it would have to go across Rushmore. And to go across Rushmore means going across Thames Water's supply area for Rushmore. The privatisation of the water companies, the manner in which it was set up, the process that we've gone through for God knows how many years in between, has led us to a position where the geography makes no sense, the supply makes no sense, and the actual position we find ourselves in is blotches all over the place. So Oakley is served by South East Water. You're right, there are fingers of Southern Water throughout your entire ward through the Candovers. So it is a really complicated geography.
Okay. I'll ask a question, Jess. So you're assessing a delay as a result of what you're being told by the LPA. What sort of delay are you factoring in here? and sort of what sort of delay are you envisaging will impact upon delivery on Many Downs South?
I think it's really looking at the trajectory of what the local plan will be moving forward, which I appreciate we don't fully understand yet. So we are going away, looking at various options of what may happen and programming those out, and then considering how that might impact the work that we've done so far and how we secure the value in the work that we've done so far, and how we take that forward through whatever the process is that is eventually agreed. So it's just a matter of pausing, continuing that work that is still able to be continued, like the transport modelling, for example, and putting some of the consultants on pause while we understand what the implications will be of the next stage of the local plan process.
But as landowner, it would be open to you to put an application in anyway.
That would be an option, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions for Jess? No.
Do you want me to talk quickly about parcel 6A?
Yes, please, if you would. Thank you.
Yeah. So very brief, but as previously reported by the programme director, the planning of parcel 6A is also subject to the transport work that we're completing, so the full build-out transport assessment. And we have looked to incorporate the delivery of parcel 6A within the scope of the work that we're completing for Many Downs South. So on the basis that the Many Downs South project is now amber to consider the implications of the local plan, we've also updated the status for parcel 6A to amber to reflect that implication for parcel 6A as its own project.
Yeah, because that one's more advanced, isn't it?
It has a slightly different planning context in that it was previously included in the local plan. However, it hasn't gone any further than that to a planning application.
Any questions on that? No? Well, thank you very much, Jess, and appreciate your attendance.
Thank you very much.
Right. So, apologies committee, and apologies to the portfolio holder. I'm sorry. Could you introduce the report? Thank you.
I'll be very brief because you want to get into the substance of it. It was just really to point out that all the work actually that goes on behind all of these KPIs, because we get presented with it. It's not the first time I've sat in front of you. And yeah, we sit here, we look at the paper, the A4 sheet in front of us that tries to tell a story of an awful lot that sits behind it. And when you look at the figures, and I was just amazed looking at the figures, so half of all the KPIs we have are exceeded. 81% of them are either exceeded, met or on track, and there are 3 which are in the red. As an organisation, I mean, no one rests on your laurels. You don't rest on simply having good results. So we don't take it for granted that we are in that position. But we are exceptional as a local authority, and it's worth saying that. There are very few councils around the country that could point at a set of figures like that. And it doesn't just happen by accident. It doesn't just happen overnight either. It's taken many years to get to this stage. But what I can say honestly is a massive thank you to the whole organisation for getting to a stage where you as a committee are presented with these kinds of KPI figures. It is important to recognise that. The huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. But we then come to the point which is really important for yourselves, which is the scrutiny and the holding to account piece. So, you know, good figures as they are, it's right that feet are held to the fire and we explain the reason why things are in the red or in amber or even in the green if there are particular questions that colleagues have, that we understand the way they are. And then, as you will expect, we did take away all the KPI suggestions you made, and very much many of them were all adopted and agreed as part of the process going forward. So thank you for your contribution to what got us to the new set of KPIs, which will be adopted for the potentially penultimate year of the council.
Thank you. Now, Senior Officer Katie Salas, do you want to give any more background at this point?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I wanted to provide some background to new members of this committee about the key performance indicator process and what you're seeing in front of you. So each year we conduct a review of the measures, and there is the opportunity to amend, delete and create new measures. And they're the ones we work to for the following year. And that process involves resources committee. So we've just had a resources committee where the measures you will see when we meet in October to discuss are have been through that process. Once the wording of each indicator has been agreed, they cannot be changed in year. So the paper you have before you this evening shows the final Q4 results for measures agreed for the year 1st of April 25 to the 31st of March 2026. So for Q4, we've included all 79 measures for completeness, and we've also added the full year outturn information, which is the first time we've done that. For ease of scrutinising the results, each measure we've developed how we present the information. So we've added more contextual information about whether a measure is statutory, purely a local target, whether it's a national target that we've stretched, or indeed whether it is just simply the national target. And rather than presenting the results for a single quarter, we now try to give you the trend data. So it is year on year, quarter on quarter, so you can understand the performance and its trajectory. So that was, and also we've tried to standardise whilst giving you more information around the narrative of why we believe the measure is at the status it is. So that was really all I wanted to say on that point.
Right, thank you. Any questions at this point? Councillor Cant.
Thanks, Katie. I really enjoyed reading that, and it's much clearer, and you can zone in to what the issues are. However, it's purely observational. It's nothing to do with the report. It's the content of the report. I was struggling then because we got out of order. I was struggling to jump to the KPI. Is there any chance you can standardise the formatting further by numbering every single KPI? Because the back end isn't numbered. So the major projects, yeah. It's a lot easier just to say, go to KPI 3 point whatever it is, yeah. And I think also I found a red one that shouldn't be red, but we'll discuss that one in a bit.
Thank you, Mark. Right. So, as I said earlier, we focus we generally for these committees focus on those scores which are amber or red, acknowledging that these are very few in number, but it's a good opportunity to understand from the senior officer directly responsible what the issues are that are giving rise to the particular scoring. And I think the first one is KP 106, which is to do with the year-on-year reduction in antisocial behaviour. So I think Tom Payne, is Tom here? Yeah, Tom, if you would like to join us and just take us through what's happening in relation to that particular KPI.
Good evening, councillors. For those of you that I haven't met before, I'm Tom Payne, the Head of Environment and Community Services. So in terms of this particular indicator, what it measures is the number of incidents of antisocial behaviour that are reported to the police. And during 25-26, there were a total of 1,958 incidents of antisocial behaviour that were reported for the Basingstoke and Deane area, which is a 16% increase compared to the year before. That's consistent across Hampshire, where we've seen sort of a significant increase, if you like, in terms of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight area as a whole was 11%. Hart saw an increase of 44%, and Rushmore saw an increase of 10%. Despite that, the actual number of antisocial behaviour reports in the borough is lower than it was 5 years ago. And when you look back again at a longer period, say 10 years, the number is actually half what it was 10 years ago. So the overall trend is still positive, but we accept there has been an uptick in the last couple of years, actually. The Community Safety Partnership carried out a more detailed analysis to look at what the reasons were for that increase. 25% of that was attributable to youth nuisance. Nuisance vehicles, particularly motorbikes, was 16% of that actual increase, and neighbours smoking cannabis accounted for, or drugs rather, accounted for 9% of that increase. So again, we're doing that deeper dive with partners to understand what the reasons were, what the issues were that were being reported, and how, as a community safety partnership, responsible agencies can respond to that. Improvements to 101 phone police call handling may have also contributed to the rise. So we looked at 24-25, and 26% more calls were answered, and 74% of those calls were answered more quickly, and there were 24% fewer call abandonments. I think, when we reflect about 2 or 3 years ago, we would have probably often been talking about how difficult it was to get through on 101. That's not the sort of message that I'm getting from the public or councillors in more recent years. There's definitely been an improvement in call handling, which is also very positive. We do obviously fully accept and recognise the impact that antisocial behaviour has on people's lives, and obviously the work we do as a partnership to understand the causes of that and respond and direct our resources to addressing it continues to be our priority. And we've carried out very targeted operations to address vehicle-related nuisance and to work to introduce youth outreach provision in particular areas. That's just a bit of a high-level overview. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Any questions? Councillor Conn.
Thank you, Chair. Given that the 25 the majority of the nuisance is the 25% youth, how are we progressing? Because I did hear not so long ago that we were thinking what part of the strategy was to bring back youth centres, or whatever the equivalent is these days. Is that still on the cards?
So there's a range of youth provision within the borough already, and I think that is increasing, primarily delivered by community associations and local youth charities from the community centres, but also village halls, and that exists. So across different areas, we've got initiatives including KICS, which was established by Reading Football Club at Downgrange, funded through SNG's Positive Pathways programme. We've got Yellow Brick Road project, which is again delivering a project within a particular area over an 18-month period with OPCC funding. There's Step by Step. There's a long list of different separate sort of projects. In addition to that, though, as a borough, we've certainly been trying to address this. So Hampshire County Council obviously withdrew its funding a number of years ago for youth services, and there have been various attempts to sort of establish and retain that sort of youth provision within the borough by different community and voluntary sector organisations. And a number of different services have been provided by local organisations, including youth clubs within community centres and village halls, as well as youth outreach. Despite us not having the statutory duty for children and young people, the council recently carried out some work with partners to establish a more sustainable youth outreach provision within the borough. And this area of work has been challenging for local organisations to sustain because of the challenges around attracting and retaining qualified staff. However, we have now got in place youth options, which deliver street-based youth work, which aims to reduce the chances of children and young people being at risk of social exclusion by providing positive activities, access to information and advice from trusted adults. In addition, across in areas of the county, they also deliver one-to-one and group work aimed at children and young people who have experienced negative life experiences, and social action projects focusing on providing young people with skills and experiences needed to take responsibility for their own future. So since starting the work in Basingstoke and Dean, Youth Options has been working closely with us, the council and other partners to establish themselves in the borough. They've been introduced to and are starting to work in Oakridge schools by the CSPOs as part of SNG's Positive Pathways project. They're invited to what we call our problem-solving group, which informs focus areas for their work, and they've attended the community safety team's joint training days with the police and other partners. So at the moment, we're very much in that early stages of them sort of setting up and working within the borough, but obviously really positive because it's very recent that this initiative has started.
Thanks, that's a very detailed and full response, thank you. So I suppose the end is there an opportunity to get some sort of strategic control over this by introducing some sort of a statutory or a statutory unit in the first instance to try and get a grip of all this landscape?
It's funny you should say that, Councillor Connor. In all seriousness, I think when Hampshire stepped off the field a good few years ago, I mean, they took connections with them in terms of the career service, they took outreach youth work away, they took the funding for youth clubs away. I mean, they literally pulled the rug from under much of the really vital youth work that was going on in the borough. And it wasn't just our borough, but most of the boroughs in the county. The financial problems they face mean that this is one of those services that they chose to cut back significantly and drastically. Now, the result of that has been, particularly during COVID, I think, the impact that has had on our young people. Now, it can be from a variety of different ways. You could look at it, mental health and health issues. We can look at it from education and aspiration and attainment. We can look at it particularly around NEETs and the issue we have in the borough on NEETs, which is significant and important and something we need to deal with. So I think when we start now to look at LGR and the opportunity that the new council presents us, that groundwork that Tom has described that we're doing voluntarily as a borough, because we choose to, we are choosing to do this because it's the right thing to do. We're putting our money where our mouth is, particularly around the mental health support for young people. That has been a particular focus this year as some of the funding. The impact that's having is significant already. One thing to note is it is very difficult to set up a youth club and get young people to come to the club. It is more easy to get outreach youth work on the streets where you are engaging young people where they are in the environments they choose to be in, so to speak, and have that a better effect. The churches have been absolutely superb in helping and supporting this entire agenda. And again, I would point to Oakley as being a really good example of where the churches are doing an awful lot of work to engage with young people on their parishes, on their pastoral area. We had a conference yesterday to discuss anti-poverty. We had over 100 organisations over in Buckskin discussing the whole range of things that involved in poverty, from food poverty to fuel poverty. One of the biggest things we discussed was child poverty. There are 5,000 children in poverty in Basingstoke and Dean. That's 25% of our young person population. That is shocking and it's disgusting. So this is a huge issue for the new authority when it comes along to take on board. And it is an issue that I am really disgusted that Hampshire County Council have dropped over the years. And there is some really good work going on locally. I had the privilege of visiting the Futures School over in Ashwood Way yesterday and talking to them about the wonderful work they're doing of turning that school round. Superb piece of work, directly affecting young people's futures. So this is a huge agenda. I know we're doing what we can as a borough council, and it is only as a borough council, but the new authority, when it has the statutory responsibility, is going to have to think very carefully about how it recreates a youth service across all of these different areas.
Right, any other questions? Julian.
In our developments in the southwest, particularly Hounslow Fields, I guess, which was originally established with funding in 2016. So we're finding now that they aren't able to deliver all of the facilities, particularly for older children. I think the school is providing for the young children, but we really do need to find some way of engaging, particularly as we've increased the amount of affordable housing in that area. I'm not sure about the other side of the A30 whether that will deliver all the facilities. If it does, that could ease that. But if we can engage early with them, it would be good. Thank you.
Just to come back, obviously there's a lot of work going on at the moment in terms of that provision. We do obviously fully recognise that there's absolute need there to provide the right facilities to serve those communities. So that's very much an active work stream. But again, if there are particular issues that you're aware of, then please feed that through to the team, and we'll be very happy to try and engage with you to address that.
Okay, just one from me. In my ward, in relation to antisocial behaviour, the Community Safety Patrol team that the borough funds does an excellent job and helps. I think the police are often very stretched, and so they are able to step in and do some very good work. To what extent do you think that housing associations are playing as full a role as they might do in some of these with some of these problems?
I think through again the partnership approach that we have, and I'm not aware of particular concerns. I think we have a very good relationship with a number of different external partners, including all of the housing associations. We've got very strong links through our housing team as well. So we've got a very strong working relationships with key partners, primarily, as you say, the housing associations particularly, to work with them to sort of tackle antisocial behaviour that might be affecting their residents. Yeah, I'm not aware of any other particular concerns.
No, it's their opportunity as the landlords to influence the parents. Often that is where I'm coming from.
Yes, we do work collaboratively with them to support families that need that need that extra bit of support and guidance to address any particular issues affecting the younger people in their properties. So again, I think we do work very well together. There's a number of initiatives that where SNG particularly is one example have funded some of the activities that are there to tackle particular behaviours in certain areas. So again, we've got a really strong working relationship with those housing providers.
Good, right. So I think unless anyone else got anything, we can thank you very much, Tom, for joining us tonight. Right, the next relevant KPI is 2.04, which is the number of council-funded EV chargers, which is a responsibility of Mark Lambert, the senior officer.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Mark Lambert, Head of Climate Change and Sustainability. So my team look after all things related to carbon emissions in the Borough Council, the Green Team, and we also support the delivery of EV chargers across Basingstoke and Deane. This particular KPI links to the rollout of EV chargers in the Borough, and so far we've had a really good record of delivering chargers in locations where we own assets, so car parks across the Borough, community centres, and other kind of facilities where we've been able to secure access. When we set the target, we were mindful that we have been working with Hampshire County Council and have provided funding to Hampshire to support the rollout of EV chargers in on-street locations. So those places where people don't have access to a private driveway or garage. We know there's a number of these in the borough. And as I say, we've submitted funding towards Hampshire to provide those. For those of you that may have kind of had conversations with me in the past, you'll be familiar with the fact that the project that Hampshire have been talking about delivering has been delayed for a couple of years now. So this KPI was established on the basis that would be delivered. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Hampshire have continued to struggle to progress that. Only the last couple of weeks they've issued a press statement to say they're now working proactively and are looking to start the rollout of that. A little bit sceptical, but I understand they are now kind of more confident about moving that forward. So hopefully we'll see further delivery, particularly to support those without access to driveways, as I mentioned. I should also add that a further issue we've had with our own investment, our own capital kind of investment across the borough of EV chargers is an issue we've had with SSE, the power operator locally. We have to undertake what's called a way leave agreement with them, which is where they have to secure the legal right to run cables underneath our land. And we've had a few issues where we've had legal complications that have delayed the progression of those way leave agreements. That bottleneck was unpicked about 2 months ago now, and so the EV chargers we were expecting to deliver earlier this year have very recently been delivered. And so if you were to ask me what our current EV provision is in the borough for our own chargers, the answer would be 64. So it's above the 60 target that we've got in the KPI there. So we've been a little bit delayed by this wayleave issue, but we've now surpassed that. And we've also been impacted by the issue with the Hampshire County Council rollout, which we've supported financially. So things are now moving forward. We've got a number of active schemes and we're looking to deliver around 8 to 10 in the next 3 to 4 months. So we should be supporting EV drivers much more comprehensively than we have done in the past.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone? Councillor Slimming.
Thank you. I think there's another KPI. It might be this one, it might be a different one, that we say we'll have one at least in each ward. Yeah. I don't know how progress has been happening. I know that in my ward in particular, there have been some issues of trying to deliver that in the Tadley area. I wonder if there's any update.
We're very much working proactively with Tadley Pool to get one installed there. So there's just a few more kind of hoops to jump through legally to make that happen, but we're confident it should be in place within the next 2 to 3 months.
Any more? Right. Thank you very much, Mark. Right. The next KPI on our list is 3.20 and also 3.24, which is firstly the debt collection rates, and then achievement or not of an unqualified audit of the council's accounts. And so could I ask the Chief Financial Officer, Adam Swain, to join us? Good evening, Adam. Would you like to just say a few words by way of introduction?
Yep, good evening, Chair, and everyone. For those of you I've met before, I'm Adam Swain, I'm the Council's Chief Finance Officer. So I'll take KPI 3.2, which relates to debt collection for sundry debt. This is also linked to 3.21, which relates to our property debt. For Q4, as it says in the report, we have one trade creditor of 275,000, which has pulled down the sundry debtor performance below 90%. If you take the overall debt position across that quarter, though, out of 9.1 million collected, we had just over 400,000 outstanding, which is just over 95%. So overall, for the total debt, we were above, but we split these out. It's unfortunate with this one that this relates to a property where the tenant left and there were dilapidations, which is where they pay to obviously make good the building, but they've since gone into administration, so that's why this is outstanding. So that's the reasons for that, but I'm happy to take questions on that one and then I can go.
And although it is downward, if you look at the full year, the trend is actually, it's probably green going downward, but amber if we're going to be a little bit harsh. So why did you, it looks like a qualitative decision to me to make it red.
Because the KPI is on a quarterly basis, so for that one quarter, for the sundry debtors, we had 3.3 million due to us, and we had 350,000. So that's why that's an average at the end, and there's some questions as to whether that works for all of the KPIs, which I need feedback. But I get your point on that. And as I say, overall for the debt collected, we were over 95% for total debt. It's just because of the way this is split.
Okay, so could you then move on to the other red KPI, which is the unqualified audit?
Chair, you obviously sit on the Audit and Accounts Committee. This is one where the Audit and Accounts Committee are well versed in this. This relates to a wider national issue with local authority accounts particularly, and audit issues. We were caught up in that our external auditors didn't undertake an audit of our 22-23 financial statements. They didn't provide an opinion, and that then has subsequent knock-on impacts on future years as there's comparative information and there's work that they haven't done. For the 25-26 KPI, that relates to the 24-25 financial year. A bit confusing, but it's just timing lags. The audit opinion that we achieved was qualified except for, which in audit speak is better than the prior years where they disclaimed, which was effectively they couldn't give an opinion on any of the financial statements. They had concerns over the whole lot because of prior year unaudited information. Last year we were able to get to a qualified except for, which focused on reserves, which is the harder area for them to get assurance over because of the previous missed audits, and also around some of the property because of valuations. There is a big push from government to get back onto track and trying to get back to unqualified audit opinions. And EY, our external auditors, have got a good work programme at the moment to look at that. We've provided a lot of information to try and catch that up, and I'm hopeful that we can actually get to that position, if not this year, as the 25-26 financial statements, definitely for 26-27, which is important as we move into LGR, because obviously having unqualified financial information is really important as you're moving into a new organisation where you're combining different sets of financial information. So, as I say, we are doing what we can as officers to improve the situation, working hard with the external auditors, but this one is generally A, for the Audit and Accounts Committee, and B, kind of outside of our control in terms of where we got to, but I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, it's very, very frustrating for an organisation that's on top of its accounts, because for 1 year of unaudited figures, that flows through into successive years, and it means that as an organisation we can't present unqualified accounts. Is there going to be a point where we will, do you think, be able to overcome this problem, or is the risk element in it reducing as each year goes by?
I think, as I said, Chair, I hope for the 25-26 we might be able to get to an unqualified opinion, as EY are doing their work on building back that assurance to get confidence over the reserves and the bits that they've missed before, and the element around the property, the valuation of those assets has now been done, so that they've got the comparative information and the current year. So I'm hoping we will definitely get to it for 26-27, the next financial year. But I'm hopeful that we might be able to for the current. It will depend on the capacity of EY to do additional work in the current audit that they're doing now. And they are undertaking a risk-based approach with MHCLG and the NAO to identify authorities where we're in the position to do that. And I think we're up in that area where we would be one of those that they would look to try and do that work. And I'm certainly pushing for the auditors to be doing that. So I'm hoping next year, when this is presented to you, it will be green and won't require coming to explain to you why. But I can't guarantee that, because, as I say, it's up to the auditor's judgment.
Well, it would be good to finish with unqualified accounts, wouldn't it? Anyway, good, thank you. Any Julian, have you got a question?
Yes, Chair, I think it was a point that you were alluding to there. Will this impact the local government reorganisation? And I guess it's not really relevant to this meeting, but do we know whether our neighbouring councils are in a similar position or a better?
I believe they are in similar positions as us, but again, working through that progress a lot, we're caught up in that position. But the government are very keen to get all councils back to unqualified, subject to obviously there being other issues, but relating to the audit backstop issues by next year, because of LGR and the importance of it. So we're all working hard to do that because clearly we want to and we have the information to do it. It wasn't that we didn't have the accounts for 22-23. We prepared them in accordance to the timescales. It was a capacity issue for the auditors and having to kind of draw a line to get back on track, which is what's caught us up. So for us, it's not about not having the information. It was just it wasn't audited.
Right. Adam, thank you very much for that clarification, and thanks for attending tonight. Right, then, so we conclude now with the head of planning, George Framalico. So, George, welcome. I think I'm right in saying that you're returnee to the council. So, it's very good to have you back, and we look forward to hearing from you tonight. There are two items in relation to your responsibilities. KPI 3.33, the non-major planning applications determined within the statutory 8 weeks timetable, and 3.36, the total number of homes delivered per annum. So if I could invite you to say a few words in relation to the delivery of non-planning applications on time.
Thank you, Chair, and it's good to be back as well at the council. So I was here for about 14 years ago, so some time ago, but had a really good welcome back. So yeah, George Framalico, Head of Planning and Infrastructure. KPI 3.33, just for members who just give some clarification around this one. So non-major planning applications are for smaller types of applications, so 9 or fewer homes. Small scale commercial, so less than a hectare in size or 1,000 square metres. It gives a bit of context around that. In terms of our performance, you'll see from the information, the government indicator is 70%. Our local target is 15% higher than that, 85%, and we were just shy of that target for the end of the year. In talking to the officers and the team, what has been a critical element to what is an improved performance in the last quarter of last year was really based on the resources within the team. We had new appointments being made in the autumn, replacing some long-standing members of staff, and that's had a real impact, as is those officers who are in assistant roles, in terms of assistant manager roles, really helping the team with their targets and moving things forward, and the careful use of something you touched on earlier on, Chair, which is the extensions of time for planning applications, making sure we're balancing those against quick determinations. So with those new resources in place, with performance improved in the last quarter of last year, I'm confident as we move forward we can reach that 85% in terms of that local target. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. So does that 85% take account of the extensions of time?
It does, yeah. So whether you determine application in 8 weeks or within the period that's been agreed by the extension of time, it gets recorded as one that would contribute towards, this is the national target, contribute towards that target. We're around, as you said earlier on, 35 to 40% of applications have an extension of time agreed. If you benchmark that against other councils, we're quite careful in the use of those. You can look at other neighbouring councils that are up to 70-80% of their applications using extensions of time, but it is included in that figure. Yeah.
But you're as head of the department, you're making sure that this is not a device used by officers to avoid the issue of trying to do conclude these planning applications within the 8 week period of time.
Absolutely, that's the critical thing. It's not used as a tool just to allow further time to make the decision. So I think the reassurance of that is that benchmarking information compared to other councils, how much are we using, how often are we using extensions of time compared to others, and we sit quite comfortably against that, around 35 to 40%. Being certain and clear with the officers where a scheme is potentially acceptable, only using the extension of time if we have to, but being clear with applicants where an application is not likely to be acceptable, being quick in terms of refusing that application. Lots of applicants like the extension of time if they would prefer us to use that and resolve issues rather than to have to resubmit. But again, as you say, Chair, it's that careful use and appropriate use of extensions of time which is really important.
Right, thank you. Anyone else a question? Right, Councillor Slimming.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome back. Extension of application time in my ward, which is very rural and has an awful lot of applications because we can't build in Tadley, so everybody wants to build in Pamba. There's a considerable number of them that have been put back and put back and put back. Some of which I've been approached by people to say that there's more demands put on us because of the extension. Because things have gone away. They want more information or an updated version, costing more money for the applicant, which obviously people aren't very happy about. Are we sure that we are actually treating some of the applicants fairly? My biggest concern is there are occasions when there seem to be unfair demands made on the applicant, and the delays initially have probably not been caused by them, but obviously they have to pick up the pieces. So I'm not saying every applicant is correct, but obviously there have been some issues, obviously say with resources and the fact that officers have been missing or gone off on long-term sick leave and things like that, and people have agreed to extensions only to find that there have been some problems as a result. So it'd be interesting if you could just keep your eye on how that might be happening.
Chair, yes, of course, very happy to do that and work with the planning manager and the assistant planning managers on that point. And if there's any particular cases outside of this meeting that you want to have a look at, just to understand a bit more about the process of that application and what happened, then very happy to pick that up outside of this meeting, if that's helpful.
Just come back on a positive note. Several times since I've come back onto this council at planning managers, we asked about getting results of the planning applications, whether they'd been determined or not, because when these things go in the ether, which we've just talked about, it's very difficult to remember which ones are in that position or not, and then all of a sudden things come forward. But I'm pleased to say that of recent times, it's now, we get a list every week telling us what has been granted or at least the decision made, and it's very welcome. And thank you very much for listening to the request that Councillor Johnson and I raised when you first got elected, Councillor Johnson, and we've a number of times. So thank you very much for introducing that. It's much better for councillors to at least be aware that things have been determined, no matter what the result is. At least you can take it off your list. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I'll feed that back to the team and your thanks as well. So much appreciated. Thank you, Councillor Slimming.
Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Chair. The planning regime will change in September. What impact will that have on this KPI? Will it remain the same? I guess the planning officers are still determining these, so maybe this will continue. Be interesting to know.
So lots of changes, as always with planning. I think the key principal change is one that we picked up at the planning training, which refers to the scheme of delegation. So for new members, the scheme of delegation manages, oversees, controls, if you like, what applications go before the Development Control Committee and which applications are determined by myself and the team. That changes to what's called a national scheme of delegation later in the year. And we will be giving a further report on this to the Development Control Committee in July, just to update on where we are and the work to be done. Quite a lot of work before that comes into force, actually at the end of October, 31st of October, that comes into force in terms of constitutional changes as well. Really difficult to see how this would impact on the performance. if we looked back at the previous committees' agendas over the last year, you'll see that, generally speaking, the most significant and important applications go to the committee. Inevitably, there will be a part of that which will be non-major applications. So if you consider, I guess, that it probably takes longer for applications to go through the committee process, and if fewer applications are going to the committee, that may well help this target. Of course, there'll be questions from members, I'm sure, about whether that's the right thing to do or not, but we are having to follow a very clear set procedure set by the national government on what we can and cannot determine through committee and through delegation. So if that helps.
Right. What difficulties do you think you'll experience as an officer leading that team and your officers generally as a result of the changes that are being made by the government in relation to delegation?
So I think the first challenge for us is to make sure we are communicating those changes to members, to parish and town councils, and indeed the public who will expect certain applications to be going before the committee given the current constitution. So I think that's our first key challenge, is communicating those changes, and with members helping the room here and the other members getting them up to speed in terms of those changes. I guess the next issue is about making sure that we've got the constitution in the right place where it needs to be amended. The constitution sets out asking the delegation currently. And the third key challenge is certain applications have to be determined through delegation. So there will be no call-in for members. Members are very used to that arrangement. Some applications can go to committee, but only when it goes through a set procedure. And explaining that procedure, articulating it so that members are clear about what the gateway tests are, I think is going to be our key challenges as well. And ultimately, I think when we start the new regime from the 31st of October, it's doing the best we can as officers to make sure that, say, members are up to speed and understand the system that we're working in, the system that's been imposed on us as well.
Yes, it can put you in quite a difficult position as officers, really, because planning applications often are highly controversial in a community, and you're going to be asked to carry out a very different role in future, and so there are causes for concern, I think. Has anyone else got any questions on that particular KPI? No? Right, thank you very much. George, if you could go on to the next one.
Thank you, Chair. So I think it's 3.36 number of homes delivered. Again, I guess more perhaps for members, obviously the council itself doesn't build homes. That's with the, in most cases, the private sector housing companies and indeed housing associations and other key partners. What we can influence is the availability of land to allow housing to come forward, and ensure that there are no, if you like, unnecessary blocks to gaining planning permission, or indeed, once they've got permission, to moving their scheme forward to bring it out of the ground. We have a shortfall here, 740 compared to a target of 830. It's improved since last year, so put into context. We're very much, I think, still in a position where over the last year, 2 years, etc., we've had quite a changing landscape in terms of the housing market itself. So increase in interest rates, cost of living increases, uncertainty in terms of that position, which has clearly impacted on the market itself, and in other areas similar situations are occurring where house builders are not, will only build essentially where the market demands there is customers to take those new units on. I think it's important to reflect that we've got a lot of extant consents in the borough. So we are issuing planning consents, albeit the delivery of those may be over a number of years into the future, so way outside of an initial kind of 5-year period. And we always take a proactive approach to supporting developments to come forward, discharging conditions as quickly as possible, and where there are blocks or rocks in the road, if you like, in terms of projects helping those developers move their sites forward as well. Clearly, progress on the local plan is critical to this one, and you've already touched on some of those issues through the local plan earlier on at the start of your meeting. In terms of where we go from here, Chair, if I may, I think we continue to ensure that we deliver where we can sustainable development for new homes. We continue to work proactively with developers and housing associations, continue to monitor this target, and ultimately, despite an incredibly complex position articulated by the leader earlier on, we do whatever we can to move forward with a local plan for the borough in whatever way we possibly can in an incredibly challenging environment.
Councillor Connor.
Thanks, Chair. Forgive my ignorance, because this isn't building's not my game, but is there a causal link between the staffing issues you were mentioning before and is it directly affecting the number of builds?
Well, I suppose you could argue that if you were a poor performing council when it comes to new determining planning applications, then you could say, I suppose, down the road there's a link. This, to me, is very much the key issue here is about the market and the state of the market. You could say if you've got a limited land supply, then you're impacting on land delivery, supply of homes. So there is some connections there, but I don't think that's the key to this situation that we've got here in front of us.
Okay, one from my ward, George, and that's in rural wards. I'm at Evingar. There seems to be a pattern of developers struggling to find housing associations prepared to take on a small number of units, and as a result, the schemes are not economic. The development is held not to be economic, and therefore development doesn't take place. And so I just, there is a concern on my part about sometimes that we have a council policy, I know, on affordable homes, but it can create problems in terms of delivering houses, and also sort of requirements like community buildings or business units and those sorts of things. They're all, I think that they probably sound sort of great ideas at the time, but time and time again, I'm afraid when it comes to actually delivering these things in the marketplace, they become a problem, and they actually act as a barrier to the bringing forward of schemes. That's just something as a rural councillor I could sort of communicate to you. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
Thank you. And I guess the key issue here is that where a development has got planning approval has an issue with its viability or its delivery, then we would want the developer to talk to us about what that is and to talk to us about solutions around that. Clearly, where you've got a policy requirement, so to take your first example, where you're, and for other new members in the room, where we have certain developments for housing of a certain size, we would expect a proportion of those houses to be affordable homes. I won't go into the detail of the percentages, but that's the ask. That clearly is hugely important. It's another KPI elsewhere in your pack, which is the delivery of affordable homes. If a developer says to us, well, we now can't deliver those affordable homes, then we would quite carefully challenge that, because that's a policy requirement to do so. There may well be issues, and I've seen this, so forgive me, but this may be apparent in Basingstoke and Dean. I've certainly seen it elsewhere in other areas, where at the moment the housing associations are under enormous pressure to make sure their stock is compliant, and their focus is making sure on that. And that follows recent tragic cases of poor living standards. So the housing associations have turned to their stock, have focused on their stock, which has meant that they sometimes haven't had the capacity to think about taking on new affordable homes in certain areas. That may well be an issue, and where that is an issue, then again it's useful for us knowing that, because we can liaise between the developer and the housing association. If there are circumstances which are particular in terms of viability, then there are certain tests that one can go through in terms of justifying that. It may well be that we have to accept a different type of agreement where instead of on-site provision, there's an off-site contribution to make that scheme happen. These are all options on the table, but I wouldn't want any member of this committee thinking that we would take those decisions lightly. We'd only take them with evidence as to say why it can't be provided. If there are particular schemes that you know about, again, we're very happy to engage on those, Councillor.
Well, there is one, and I've been in touch with your team and Councillor Konecka, but it's dragged on for years, and it's very frustrating for a community that wants to meet its obligations to provide housing as part of its neighbourhood plan and can't do it because there's a sort of there's a problem there with the being able to get a housing association on board, but it's moved on unfortunately since then. But okay, but thank you. It's useful just to take this opportunity to communicate a rural issue. I think how I'd see it. Okay. Any other questions for George? No, thank you very much. So, Joe, just to sort of wrap up the KPI part of our agenda, anyone got anything they want to raise in relation to any of the other KPIs? No. Can I just make the point, Katie, that there are still quite a few KPIs where there's no real target. It's just an increase. And so it's not a stretch target anyway. It's just have we done better than we did the year before? And some of them there are still a few examples of we've done something that we're supposed to do on time. And again, that doesn't strike me as particularly challenging as a KPI. So there are quite a few of those through it. Have you completed your work in relation to revising the KPIs that we're going to see in October?
Yes, there are 6 further ones with actual targets. And what we will do with officers who are completing the narrative on the sort of milestone direction of travel, those sort of things, is to further ramp up the narrative that they provide to reassure committee why they're saying it's on track.
Okay, and sorry, Councillor Slimming.
Thank you. Some time ago we had several sessions on looking at how we scrutinise, and one of the questions we looked at KPIs, and one of the areas that we suggested might be useful is that, I can't remember what number it is, but obviously you report back on how quickly we deal with complaints, i.e. do we deal with them within the time frame that we are set, you know, the 10-day response time, etc., which is fine, and it looks okay. But what we did ask for was what was the nature of those complaints, to see if there's any trends, because obviously if everything was about one particular area, it would be useful to know that there were issues with a particular part of the council. And it was agreed at that meeting, and it's about 2 years ago now, that we would look at that. Is that one of the things that's going to be introduced in the future?
So we still have the measure of responded to within 10 working days. Within the narrative each quarter, we say what the allocation of the complaint was, so whether it's about our policies, delay in response, so that is included there. We've also recently started more trend analysis on our complaints, and so that will form part of our narrative going forward. So it'll be the volumes about what category and also further insight.
Yeah, and there's one other, I should have asked Mark Lambert about it, and that was 2.06, and the number of people advised by the Green team. It was scored blue, but the number of people we advised fell by 1,330. So it's quite hard to understand why it was a blue.
The target was 1,300, so they smashed the target they set themselves, and also there's a qualitative element to the advice they're giving in the context of how they're doing it. They've also transitioned in terms of households, businesses. You can imagine the variety of organisations that they support. So yeah, but again, it's the narrative piece. I'm very happy to bring, and if that is an area that you would like a presentation on, then that can be arranged.
For a case of for the next time we have the KPIs before us, actually. Yeah, fine. Okay. Thank you. I think we can now move on, if everyone's happy with that, to the next item on the agenda, which is a report on our IT services. And I think this is the first time this has been before a scrutiny committee, which is so it's a first. It's good. I think you're the officer with ultimate responsibility for that department, but we've also got Paul and Matthew with us tonight in support. Okay, so thank you very much for your report. I think that it's also Councillor Harvey's responsibility. He's multitasking again, which is great. So I just a few words of introduction. I think that the IT clearly is a backbone of a modern council, and without them we can't provide the services that we do provide to our residents. And if it's done well, it can be delivered. We can deliver services faster and cheaper. But there are challenges, as this report shows, about legacy systems, cyber threats, and enough IT capacity. Clearly, it's a service that needs to be adequately funded and resourced. And we have got the challenge looming in front of us, coming at us quite quickly in relation to local government reorganisation, in that we are going to have to achieve with the new council the bringing together of 4 separate IT services over what is under 2 years now. So with that, can I ask you, Councillor Harvey, to make any introductory remarks you would like to make?
No, just to say that I'm glad the committee wants to have a deep dive into this one, and I'm conscious of bringing the team with us to answer the questions you may have. I'm conscious a number of you around the room work in the field as well, so you probably know this far better than I do. But nonetheless, very open to hearing what you have to say and answering any questions you've got. So look forward to the debate, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, you want to say anything?
Please. Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an overview of the Council's IT and digital service, covering the current performance, key risks, and the work underway to maintain secure, reliable and modern systems that support our services and residents. Overall, the service is stable and delivering its core functions effectively. We've made progress in strengthening our cyber security posture, maintaining system availability and supporting major corporate priorities, including digital transformation and now in preparation for local government reorganisation. The report is also transparent, as the Chair has said, about the challenges we face. These include managing a technical debt within our systems that is not uncommon across councils. It's not us, just us. We continue to recruit.
Could you just explain what technical debt is? Because it's something that may not be immediately apparent to just some councillors and those of us and people listening in.
It can be in terms of your hardware, that sort of technical debt, but what we're really referring to here are some of our legacy line of business systems, which are built for a very specific reason. They get very complex over time, and that then makes them very difficult to work with, very cumbersome, because you're continually tailoring them. So it's that kind of technical debt that this report is really focusing on, because of the level of work that's gone on within the team to replace the other kind in terms of our hardware and servers, etc. Yes, that we continue to recruit and retain specialist staff in what is a competitive market, and ensuring that our infrastructure remains resilient in the face of increasing cyber risk. Our focus is on balancing day-to-day operational stability with longer-term improvement, reducing the risk, modernising our platforms and enabling better digital services for residents and for our staff in their support of residents. Before we move to questions, and just to set context for members and those watching, this is a public report and we will answer questions openly wherever we can. However, given the nature of IT and digital, particularly our cybersecurity arrangements, any technical vulnerability and commercially sensitive information, some of the detailed information that sits behind the report is exempt under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972. So that exemption exists to protect the council's systems, suppliers and ultimately residents. If questions move into that level of detail, we may need to pause and consider whether to move into Part B so that members can receive the full response and a candid response. As this would involve Ellie stopping the streaming of the meeting, I've discussed this with both the Chair and Ellie in advance, and we've agreed that if there are questions that are Part B questions, that we would collect them and do them at the end of the meeting rather than interrupt the streaming. I'm joined this evening for their first committee meeting by Paul Tatum, who's our Operational IT and Cyber Security Senior Manager, and Matt Vickers, who is our Digital Development and Design Senior Manager. So Paul and Matt are here, as the leader has said, to support with more detailed and technical questions, but we welcome your questions.
Good, thank you very much for that. So you'll let us know when we're straying into something that's going to be regarded as sensitive and so forth. Okay, Councillor Slimming, if you start us off.
Yeah, a totally practical question. I've had a member of my residents contact me about the Wade Road booking. I wasn't sure if that stays under our control or whether it's Hampshire County Council, but apparently it has changed recently, and therefore the number of slots being offered to him are not very convenient or very quick to be. Apparently they're only sort of released in the following week and a very short notice, and probably at times that he didn't have as much choice. Is this something that's in our control, and have we changed it? And would you like some feedback from the resident on why he has a particular issue?
That is something that the County Council run. That isn't us at present. It will be in a couple of years' time.
But there is just one fair point to make, I think, in terms of process. County chose to take away the telephone option and go to a wholly digitally based booking system. And one of the things we are being very clear on with the strategy is that we are maintaining the human contact. So you will ring our contact centre, you will have a human interaction. The services we provide and the team support that, and they also support the follow through. So when the call comes in and how it goes through the system is something we're concentrating on to maintain that human contact, but to have all the digital systems set up to help support the staff then pursuing the complaint or pursuing the issue that's raised through the telephone system. We wouldn't go down that route of going wholly digital. I don't think that's appropriate, and that county made a mistake there.
Okay. Councillor Con.
Thanks, Chair. The point 2.13.5, where you spoke where you've written very quickly about information governance and business. Given that we're going into LGR, this is more of a question, not about the report per se. It's about how much are you aware? How much preemptory work are we doing about information sharing protocols? Given that LGR is going to present some unique challenges when it comes to, department work pensions, all the health stuff. Do you know if that been worked on now, or is it? Thanks.
So yes, we've been doing some work in preparation for day one ourselves, but that work, the programme of work, is now underway with the County Council, and we're starting to supply staff to work in that programme as of next week. So everything is underway now.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Harvey.
I'm trying to remember the figure I was heard recently, but if I've got this right, and I may have this completely wrong, but I understood it, for example, the County Council's got 44 million different data points. when you take account of children's services and social services, it becomes absolutely critical in the process, which is the point you're raising. So actually, we are the lead authority in that whole work stream when it comes to LGR because we recognise how important that is.
Councillor Collier.
Point taken, leader. But if you've got 44 million data points in a tier 1 authority, you can rest assured that probably a third of them are double bubble. So that's the thing about the information sharing, because then you can do the matching.
There has been a certain amount of preemptive work done around forming a data hub for all the councils that formed the business case together, so we can do some of that early work in terms of our contracts, staffing, etc. So that work is well underway.
Any other questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. This rather reminds me of something I did in my own career, trying to merge 3 banks in Spain, rather unsuccessfully. We obviously have 2 things that will be happening in the next few years. A, we're taking on the functions from Hampshire, and we're also trying to combine the three things. As I say, from my previous experience, that's not easy. How different are those 3 systems of the North Hampshire councils? Because I think that's probably the bigger challenge, to merge those 3.
So between ourselves, Rushmore and Hart, there are some systems that we share. We will use, and so that is an easier combination. But what we're really doing at the moment is understanding, in order to be safe and legal is the term they use for day one, we will still each work on our own system, and then you're merging it at the front end so that the customer doesn't realise what's going on, and then you go through a period of probably 3 to 5 years after go live vesting day where those systems are properly aligned. So that's the aggregation piece, and the disaggregation of the county's data. That's the work that is currently about to start.
I can come back on another completely different area. The whole sort of Citrix environment. Clearly, when you're in an area with a very good information system, that's not a problem. But if we're out in some of the country areas where the telephone network is not, or the IT network is not as up to speed, is that a big challenge? I sometimes see with my own system, when I'm at home, quite long delays before the system kicks into action. Is that a result of that remote support?
Chair, so thank you for the question. So we have a number of systems in place to support our user base. We have users in Whitchurch, for example, where some of the broadband speed is very low. So we have systems in place that can support them working via Citrix, which is a much easier mechanism for where we have slow connections. But we equally have many users that use VPN over very fast broadband connections, Teams meetings, etc., and support them really. So we have a number of systems and solutions in place to try and cater for staff across the different variations in broadband speed across the borough.
And one final one. Certainly for me, I found it quite difficult to understand the structure of all this stuff. Is it possible to produce some diagram that illustrates all the different systems and to what extent they're integrated and to what extent they're completely separate systems?
So as a local authority, we have somewhere in the region of 150 applications that support various parts of the business, from cemeteries, allotments, all the way up to regulatory services. So producing a map of all of that would be very large bits of paper. We are, however, or have done some work on, and it's referenced within the report, around something called LGCAF, which is a cyber assessment framework, and we've achieved CAF readiness, and we've done 3 maps across a number of different systems that we had. So we chose a cloud only, an on-premise solution, and a hybrid cloud
and on-prem solution. So I'm happy to share with this committee those 3 maps that we produced for that process to give you an idea. We are looking to go down the road of them achieving full LG CAF, which will map out our what we call critical systems as determined by the business continuity process and the work that our colleagues in that team have undertaken. So it won't cover all systems, but we can do a generic one across the infrastructure and one across some of those 3 that I've got across the LG CAF work at the moment. I can share those with the committee. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just ask about that? This is the assurance that the government seeks councils to achieve in terms of national standards, which is the Cyber Assessment Framework (CAF), and I think we're CAF ready. I think the Department of what's it, DLUCHC is expecting councils to be substantially compliant by already, sort of by spring of this year. Is that so? Are we behind?
The LG CAF hasn't been live for a long time, so there've been pilot areas, and the MHCLG provided funding to support other authorities in achieving that CAF readiness and within a pilot. We have achieved CAF readiness approximately a year or so back. Unfortunately, weren't in a position to take that forward as an authority, mainly because I was off sick for a period of time, and which left the team kind of a bit short-handed. So I'm back now, and we are working with my cybersecurity engineer, and have recently reached out, and we're working with MHCLG, Local Gov Digital, to get additional support from them and understand the changes in process since we achieved CAF readiness to make sure we can achieve CAF readiness as soon as possible. CAF as soon as possible.
So any idea when you would expect to be us to be substantially ready?
I would like to see it in the next 9 months or so that we're in that position. There's work to do to get there. So, like I say, we've got to map out, go through a self-assessment process, and then we have a company will come in and challenge that and approve assurance in that sense.
Thank you, Paul. Right. Any other questions? Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Paul and Matthew. Nice to meet you. Just reading through the report more generally, I start to see that quite a lot of the language has just been repeated throughout the statement. So, for example, 2.11 and 2.13, they basically read and say exactly the same thing, and I'm not sure why you've introduced so many bullet points when it could have been drawn down and been much, much shorter, and probably said the same.
Apologies, I'm the report author rather than Matt or Paul. I was trying to tell a story, and if I've ended up repeating myself, I'm sorry. If it reads like that, it's very difficult to write a report of this nature. I'm not a technician, and it's trying to write something that is understandable but covers enough. So I apologise if it is repetitive in its nature. That wasn't the intention.
Heaven forbid. Right. Any other questions? So one I've got, Katie, is there's no financial data provided here. So this council is investing. We've recruited a new cyber engineer and an infrastructure engineer and a BI developer. But how is the budget for 25-26? How does that compare with, say, the budget for 24-25? And can you provide us with the budget that you have to spend for IT?
So from a capital perspective, we have 2.6 million over 5 years for capital investment across the replacement of hardware, and that's everything from laptops, desktops, audio-visual, server storage, backup, all of those things, all within that. And on the revenue side, excluding staffing budgets, we have a revenue of about 1.5 million. I can't see the staffing thing, but I would imagine the staffing's circa £1 million a year.
So given how critical IT is to the services we provide, and also the threats that one's increasingly facing with cyber, is that budget sufficient in terms of capital and also in terms of revenue and resources?
Yeah, so we have increased the budgets over time. So at the last budget workshops that we've done with finance and that, we have increased budgets to increase the capability, provide better support and those things. And we've increased the FTE count through the restructure that's referenced in the report that went live in April 25.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions? Councillor Carr.
I think the question I have possibly is for part B, because I think I'm keen to understand, given the cyber threat environment, what sort of, what kind of contingency do we have in place? Because I'm conscious that, if cyber attacks are successful, what that then, can we have some assurance about, has the council prepared for that? Because that can have some very considerable knock-on impacts to residents, and can we have sort of some assurance about the contingencies around that if any of these things are unfortunately successful?
Okay, so are you going to address that
In part B.
in part B? Right. Okay. Any other questions? Right, I've got one again. It's 2.15.3. It says that user satisfaction levels are high, with post-service surveys showing 94% of responders rate their level of satisfaction at 75% or above. Who is being surveyed by this? Does it include councillors?
Yeah, so it's a sample taken from people that log IT service requests, so that will include staff and councillors if they log it through that portal or log a service request. If staff or councillors walk up and that call isn't recorded, then that isn't included within the survey results. And we sample about, there's a percentage, I can't recall the percentage off the top of my head, but a percentage of help calls get sampled for surveys.
Okay. Can you tell us something about explain a bit more about Microsoft Copilot and how many licenses we've got, and
Are we not going to talk about that in the AI policy next?
Fine. Okay. Yeah. We'll do that. Yeah, but I've logged it now. Right. Can do. Right. Anything else from anyone? Okay, so shall we move on then to the AI paper? And does that need an introduction?
No.
Just an appendix, okay. Right, so if anyone's got any questions in relation to the AI appendix, then please proceed. Good. Julian.
Thank you, Chair. So reading through the statement, the policy, etc., it doesn't seem to guide users into what they might be doing with AI, as opposed to preventing them from using AI for their roles. So I know, for example, in my workplace, we have AI champions that you can go to and you can say, I've got this problem and I want it solved. What's the best way to do that? And they'll say, oh, go away and get Claude, or, go away and do this or that, the other. The scope of this policy feels very much, we're very sceptical, which I applaud. Don't worry, I'm not sold on AI, but I understand it is the way things are going. It would be just quite nice to have something in the policy that said, actually we are adopting it. It is the future. What can we offer to find out those solutions for you?
Thank you. Yes, we wanted to produce the policy because we were aware people were using it in an uncontrolled manner, and not really. It's so easy to access. You might not realise what you're doing, what you're putting in the search engine. So that was the nature of getting that first draft of the policy out. Also, as part of the restructure, we have recruited an IT trainer, which is something we haven't had before. And we've been doing a set of work in terms of upskilling our staff to work on a digital workspace, so using SharePoint and Teams, and have plans also to extend that out to AI awareness as well. So it will come. And in terms of our position, if we want, everybody gets a Copilot license as part of their Microsoft account, but to have a licensed Copilot account, which is within our tenant, that's a much smaller number because there is a financial cost to that. And that's something the council also needs to understand. If we're spending that money, what are we achieving as a result of that? And that work is still to be done there. I think there are a lot of officers in the council who do jobs that mean they work on a line of business system and they don't write letters in the way you're thinking, or need the productivity support in the way that certainly Copilot could give. But there absolutely will be an audience amongst our officers who would benefit from it as a tool. It's just our position on that and training them on that and doing prompts and all of those kind of things is further down the line.
Okay, for the benefit of people listening in, can you explain what Microsoft Copilot is and does?
I will have a go, and if I don't, I will hand over to Matt. Or would you rather do it, Matt? No? Yes. So as part of a Microsoft license, you get access to their AI tool, which is Copilot. We've already heard Claude mentioned, that there are others out there. So, and also you'll notice when you do an online search on Google, you will get the AI snippet as your response now. So that'll happen if you search about us as well. You don't go straight to our website. It is pulling information out. So it has the ability to surface either your internal work files or the website. You can do it in work or website mode. And it is just a fast tool for gaining information, insight, etc. I don't really know how else to explain it. Do you, Matt?
So have there been any breaches of protocol so far with this?
In terms of people using it, using things that aren't Copilot, yes. But what Paul's actually done it recently, we have blocked the top 10 Copilot style. So the Claude, Gemini is another one, is it? Grok, all of those, you cannot access them now from our systems. We had briefed people not to do it, but it had happened. So we've actually done that as an extra precaution.
So might that inhibit us in our development as a business, as an organisation?
No, I don't believe so, because you can still do it on Copilot. There is an awful lot people can do on the free version of Copilot. As long as you don't put personal, commercial or sensitive data in there, you can still do an awful lot with it. But you're safe to put that other kind of data in when you have the license model. But it is no, the others aren't better than Copilot, and certainly that's our build is a Microsoft build, so it is supportive of our environment.
Very interesting. Right, Councillor Connor.
Thanks, Chair. I'm unlike my colleague here, I'm not as sceptical of AI, particularly Copilot. The thing, if I was overseeing this in any sort of shape or form, is the thing with Copilot is how you prompt it. Yes. And if you get the right prompts and you get the right answers out, and then you just double check the references, and it works a treat. So I'm a big fan of it.
And that's why we feel it's important to train people how to use it properly, because it's not just a search engine, it is so much more powerful than that. But there is the art of the prompt. I don't know if you want to add anything, Matt.
Yeah, I'll just go back to Councillor Jenkins' previous point. So obviously the policy states to ensure that we're safe and we're making responsible use of AI. But training sessions are starting as of tomorrow. We have the member training session, and within that training session will be, a part of that will include sensible prompts. What's a good prompt, how to use it, etc. We don't have AI champions, but we have digital champions. We have 54 of them across the whole organisation. They will also be trialling the similar sessions to what members will receive before we roll that out across the whole organisation. Thank you.
Okay, right. Another one from, Councillor Harvey.
I was just going to say, in terms of the policy, just going back to what we said about digital exclusion, it's a tool, so we are not looking in any way for AI to be replacing people. I think the context that we're talking about it is in the context of a tool and not something that's going to replace officers. So bearing in mind the conversation we're having, I think it's fairly important to put that point out there. Copilot, I mean, I use Claude. Other people use different platforms. I know colleagues around this table use different platforms as well. And the sorts of mythoses of this world and the Skynets of this world that are out there that are allegedly supposed to do everything and can do everything are a different world away from the conversation we're having here in this room, I think.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, slightly concerned that we appear to be boiling the ocean in here. It's particularly the first paragraph. You've got the facial recognition. What have we got? It's facial recognition and stuff. If it's got to be in, I'd rather see biometrics, because we might be recognising other physical features, or maybe we're not. But it does strike me that there's an awful lot of stuff in that first paragraph, and I'm not absolutely sure it needs to be there.
Okay, one other one from me then. I think in the report somewhere it says that we as a council have got about 150 applications, and so presumably with an eye to local government reorganisation, we'll be looking to retire quite a few of those applications. But is there a strategy that, because it presumably needs to be agreed fairly early on with the other partners in North Hampshire Council, is there a strategy as to where we're likely to want to invest in order to make sure that we have a new system that's going to be comprehensive and fit for the jobs that it's going to be required in time for 2028?
So the North Hampshire element of the programme is due to start in early July. So we will then have a deeper understanding of what colleagues across Hart and Rushmore are using, what version they're on, is it on premise, in the cloud, and then we will need to have a forward-looking plan about what we use. There is a certain amount we will be able to continue to use what we currently have for day one, because it will all still work, and it's just how we knit it together at the front end so that residents across the new council don't see it all joined together in the background. But it's also balancing that work with the disaggregation work that's coming from the county. And once we understand all of that, then that would create a real programme. What we're trying to do ahead of that is get ourselves in the best shape we can be in terms of our data, how we're using our systems. So we've made some reference in the report to some of our own, some of the stuff we've been able to retire as part of this, which has decreased our risk, but also making a simpler infrastructure environment.
So if we as a committee urged you to seek agreement with our partners as soon as possible because of the magnitude of the task and complexity of it and the need to get the systems in place and agreement on systems that are going to operate in place as soon as possible, but we'd obviously hope that would be the case, but no doubt you'll tell us if that's not the case in due course. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. As we recognise the priority that the IT and technology workstream has, and since I've worked with the team, it's a huge area. It's hugely complex, and we don't underestimate it. And we're very much preparing for the challenge ahead.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back to a few statements that have been made. I think saying co-pilot is the same as the others is a bold claim. I mean, they are all as much as a much, but there are better ones and there are not as good ones. So reading through the document, it doesn't mention anywhere about humans in the loop and hallucinations at all. And I was wondering what's our stance on making sure that, we aren't having hallucinations in any of our outputs. And I'll ask the next question when I get their response to that. Thank you. So it's well known within AI that it hallucinates. It takes a load of data and then it kind of decides that the outcome isn't necessarily what a human would have decided the outcome would have been. It may in the prompt a reference might pick up something that points it to an incorrect piece of knowledge, and then it kind of feeds that in. Things like the Mandela effect are quite well documented on online AI models now. So the policy doesn't reference any kind of hallucinations at all, and I think maybe we should reference them to make sure people know that that is something that can happen when using AIs.
Yeah, noted. If you're happy, I can take that away. Thank you.
Yes, we've just done a review of the policy, but we can add that in to it and also include that in the training as well. Speaking with colleagues in audit who have started to use licensed co-pilot in their work, they noticed there were hallucinations in it, but that everything that they do is then checked with the human in the loop. And we're clear that if you've used it in that way, you need to be clear about that and that you've checked it.
It's beginning to make me hallucinate hearing that. Goodness me! What a new world, brave new world is arriving. Yes. Indeed. Any other questions for the officers? Yeah.
And when you're mentioning licensed Copilot, do we have our own internal instance of Copilot where the data doesn't leave us and then the free version is online and the data does leave us? Okay, thank you.
Good. Okey-doke. Now, I think there's one confidential question, wasn't there, that we needed to? Right, for everyone listening on the web, we're going to operate the provision for going into private session because it's the sensitivity of the information that is going to be discussed. But we will return once that piece of